Andrea, do I just start? I'm ready to start. Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. I wasn't sure. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our presentation on combating social isolation and loneliness during this wonderful time of COVID. My name is Kayla Daly, and I am a licensed mental health counselor, board certified music therapist, and currently a PhD student at Temple University in Philadelphia. So my presentation today focuses on some of the tools and tips and tricks that you can use to combat social isolation and the effects that it may have on you. And then we have a little bit of a loneliness exercise, kind of something that will help you tap into relaxation. And basically, when we're lonely, it kind of has something to tell us. Loneliness has something to tell us that we're in need of something, and so if we listen to it, we might be able to actually learn how to better access our self-care, our composure, our compassion for ourselves, and tap into that. So I'm hoping that this will be helpful for you today, and that you can come back and use this relaxation exercise to combat loneliness whenever you need it. Okay, so I have my guitar here, so I will use that at some point. But first, I wanted to give you a little bit of the background, so I'm going to share my screen. And just give me one moment. And of course, it's behind here. Sorry. One second. Here we are. All right. And back to you guys so I can share this. Here we are. All right. So here's our presentation today, The Power of People. And let's go to our next slide. So helping identify the challenges that social isolation presents is part of the battle. And so we know that it has a direct impact on our mental health, our social health. Anything that's going on in our lives is going to be impacted by the fact that we can't stay in touch with folks. Physical touch is so huge to our mental health and well-being, and as well as our physical health. So it's really quite important. We've seen a 10% increase. So we've gone from 20 to about 30% of an increase in social isolation since the beginning of the pandemic, where folks are reporting their loneliness is going up by 10%. It's really intense to see some of these numbers come back from these preliminary surveys. We've also seen that, about 20 to 28% of people are living alone. And so that's months of extended isolation. And so how do we combat that? Because it's very easy for these things to settle into depression and anxiety and present themselves out also in physical symptoms. Depression and anxiety long-term can really lead to some serious heart issues and things like that. And we've seen that. High blood pressure, high levels of stress can lead to high blood pressure. And so we really want to make sure that we're taking a moment to pay attention to this, because as we all know, we've experienced this. It's been really challenging. So when we're looking at this type of health model, we're looking at what's called a biopsychosocial health model. And this health model is really important to understand because we all have various needs. And sometimes my social needs, like right now, are very much in debt. I really need to see my friends. I need to log on to Zoom and connect with my mom. I need to tap into these things so that I don't let it get beyond me. So our social needs are obviously our relationships, our family relationships. Our psychological needs are making sure we're taking care of our mental health and self-esteem. And our biological needs are what we're kind of born with, our physical health, our genetics. and the effects of medication and things like that. Dr. Wagner, one of my colleagues, would also add to this cultural needs and spiritual needs, right? So we're looking at a whole person. And so the biopsychosocial model really helps us do that. So I like to kind of frame what we're doing today within this model so that you don't let one of your needs go by the wayside. Because if you meet one but not the other, we're still kind of missing an important piece of the puzzle. And so this biopsychosocial model is really a salutogenic model of health. And what it really does is look at our strengths. So what are things that we really are great at doing, and how do we capitalize on those? How do we kind of focus on those strengths-based, what's meaningful to us as humans, to really focus on better wellness and holistic levels of care. So looking at the whole person, not just a symptom. So that we can really make sure that this is a long-term goal. Life is a long-term, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, as they say. And so we really want to make sure that we're just taking all of these factors into consideration when we look at our health. It's not just a physical issue, it's not just a mental health issue, it's a whole health model, okay? And so what can we learn? Like I said, loneliness always has something to tell us. Social isolation, that kind of puts us into a state of loneliness, it really does have something to tell us. And so oftentimes people tell me as a counselor, they say, I'm surrounded by people, but I'm actually feeling really lonely. So it's not necessarily how many people that surround you. It's really more about some of the inner feelings that we have about loneliness. And so the first relationship that we really need to look at when we're looking at loneliness is our relationship with ourselves. And everyone's like, oh, I know, Kayla. And it's kind of like this obvious thing, but we don't want to do it. And so that's kind of what we're talking about today. And that's the exercise that I'm going to lead you in, is how to have a little bit of a talk with yourself to see what loneliness has to tell you. And so as I say here in my tips, self-compassion goes a long way, because a lot of us have been really hard on ourselves. Oh, I don't feel as effective in my work on Zoom, or, oh, I don't feel like I'm connecting enough. I'm missing something. I'm not doing enough. There's always this good enough concept, and really giving yourself some self-compassion during this time is huge. Okay, it's huge. It's huge. It's huge. I am recently a new mom, so I've learned that too, that maybe if I just brush my teeth and wash my hair today, that's going to be what I get done, and that's going to be enough. So I'm just giving you an example. If you showered today, great. But in seriousness, the act of noticing our feelings, right? Gently noticing feelings that come up, and instead of self-deprecating for something that might be bothering us, or oh, I should have done this, or I didn't get to that. More so like, hey, you know what, I didn't get to that today, but I know that I'll start with that tomorrow. Things like that, where we kind of shape shift and frame this a little bit differently. And so I love to give my clients this exercise where I say, how would you talk to yourself when you see a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old? How would you talk to that little child during this time when they're having a hard time? You probably would be really nice to them and kind of say, what do you need? And so asking ourselves what we need is really important. So I want to get to the exercise so that we can all kind of experience some of this. So this is a guided relaxation exercise that was written by me, and you can make it your own. Okay, so there's no wrong way to engage in the exercise. If meditation and things like that freak you out, this exercise is for you, because I'm not good at that really either. And the idea of this is that you can really have your individual way of kind of engaging in it work for you. Okay, so there's no wrong way. And if it helps you, you can grab a piece of paper and a pencil, because that will make this exercise, at the end there's a little bit of writing that might help if you want to write or sketch, or any of that helps to solidify your thoughts. Okay, so I as a music therapist have to bring the guitar into everything I do. All right. So find yourself in a comfortable position. Maybe your feet are planted firmly on the floor, or perhaps you adjust your seat. You might want to move to a comfortable spot. That's okay. If you're at work, that might be a little challenging, but try. So for the initial stage of this exercise, you might want to close your eyes. If that's uncomfortable for you, that's okay. You can focus on something across the room. And I always offer to turn your video off if that helps you too, to induce a relaxed state. Remember, there's no wrong way, okay? So find what works best for you. It doesn't have to be what anybody else is doing. So every one of us experiences loneliness at some point. And recently, with current world events, the isolation and feelings of loneliness may present as much stronger, with a much more pronounced presence in our lives. So take a moment to notice your breathing. Just notice it. You don't have to change it. Maybe it's fast, slow, even-tempered. Maybe it's a little tense now that I asked you to pay attention to it. That's okay. And just notice it. And I'm going to ask you to breathe in. And then hold your breath. And then breathe out. I'm going to do it again. Let's try. Try to breathe out for twice as long as you breathed in. So we might breathe in for 3 seconds, hold for 3 seconds, and then breathe out for 6. So let's try it. Ready? We'll breathe in, hold, and breathe out. Breathe in, hold, and breathe out. Doesn't have to be perfect. You're breathing, so that's a plus. All right. Now, with each breath, your body might become a little bit less tense, releasing muscles. You can let go of any invasive thoughts of the day that drift past you. Just let them go. And they'll fight you, and that's okay too. I know, because they fight me. Just remember to breathe in and gently out. And here we come to our loneliness exercise. So imagine a person in front of you. Imagine that person is an embodiment of the loneliness that you may be feeling or have felt at some point in your life. And imagine that person sitting with you like you would a friend. You know, you're sitting with a friend over a cup of coffee or maybe tea. And that person is sitting with you gently, ready to tell you what they've been noticing. They notice you have some needs, and they wish to tell you about it, so that you may learn a little bit more about yourself. So just take a moment and take a chat. Have a chat with this person. When you talk to this person, you're going to learn from them what you need. Is it self-compassion, like we talked about earlier? Perhaps it's a bit of self-care, a little more sleep, maybe a change in some of the stuff you've been eating. I know that's probably a lot of us. Maybe it's a little bit more outdoor time, taking a walk in the woods. So maybe the person's there to remind you that, oh, you got to call that friend that you haven't called and talked to in a while. You want to check in on them, just as you're taking a moment right now to check in on yourself. So as you're taking a moment to dialogue or talk with this person, loneliness, grab that pen and pencil or piece of paper that you have and write down what they have to tell you. I'll give you a minute. As you write down what they have to tell you, you might be coming to a close with what you're writing. And if you're still writing, that's okay. So just, you can, bring it to a close when you're ready. And when you're finished, you can bid your friend loneliness farewell. I'm sure they'll be there if you want to come back. All right. And when you're ready, gently bring your attention back to your body. Just once again, If you notice there's any tension in your body, you want to release it. Usually it's our shoulders. So you breathe in and out. Just let those shoulders go. Any place you might have any discomfort, just allow your breath to fill those spaces with warmth and softness. With warmth and softness. And with warmth and softness, gently bring yourself back into this virtual space with me. All right. So if you still needed a little bit of time to write down what loneliness was telling you, that's okay. You can continue writing. As I finish the presentation, we're going to move along a little bit. But this is, again, something that we do a lot, and especially particularly in counseling and therapy, having a dialogue with yourself and then taking a component of the essence of ourselves. So maybe it's loneliness, maybe it's our anger, maybe it's our frustration, and having a dialogue or a conversation with it and see what it has to tell you. Really, really valuable exercise. And usually, sometimes people are surprised by what comes out of it. Sometimes it's something really obvious, but you need to hear it. So this is just really something that I very much enjoy kind of doing with our clients. And so it's something that I like to share with all of you, because this is anything, you can do this at any time at home. Journaling tends to be really helpful. So let's go to our next slide. So in this case, self-care, the word discipline as it pertains to self-care or how to combat social isolation, it's not a negative word, but it's a soft commitment to continue, right? It's a soft commitment to continue making the changes, subtle changes, little changes over time that add up to a larger life change. Okay, so I think I said as a lifelong learner, right? So one of the little tips for social isolation, because we tend to be in social media all the time, and yet we really have never felt more lonely, right? And so setting limits on it, and then trying to connect in other ways. Whether it be in person on Zoom, but not in person. Well, now this is our in person, isn't it? But connecting through Zoom, go to meetings, another app, all of these apps, but connecting and scheduling that time, right? And what I've done before is I've actually kind of noticed I took Facebook off my phone, right, and only had it on my computer. And I actually noticed how many times I went to the app spot on my phone naturally out of just mindlessness. And I noticed how much time I was saving, right, to spend with my family or get other things done. And I really thought, you know what, that was such as much as I love connecting with people through Facebook, it's really valuable to cut down on that time. And taking it off my phone was really helpful for me personally. But start small, anything like that. And so this is my other tip, is making a resource list. So these are resources for you that you can access. We forget that we have these sometimes, right? So, and each individual person is going to have a different resource list. So your resource list doesn't have to look the same as anybody else's. I think when people think self-care, they automatically think I'm going to get my nails done or something. Or, for guys, it's like, oh, go have a Bud Light down at the bar, and or even ladies, yeah, let's all go have a drink and things like that. So instead of some of those habits that while they are helpful to let off steam in moderation, we want to try and kind of tap into other resources as well that we don't always think about. And that's what this list is for. So websites like calm.com, headspace.com, right? Routines that help us. So I've been setting out, some of the things I need to get ready in the morning. I set them out the night before, and it helps me feel just a little bit more in control when the morning is going crazy. Scheduled visits with family and friends, your own personal therapy. I'm a huge supporter of therapy with my college students, my graduate students, who are all becoming therapists. I always say, have you ever had therapy? Because becoming a therapist and not ever experiencing therapy for yourself is a little silly. But really, it's preventative medicine. We're looking at, things don't have to be wrong to go to therapy. You really just might want to kind of get to know yourself a little bit deeper. And then socially distanced outings. I've noticed like some folks have had like their pod of 5 people or so that they are quarantining with, and they do outdoor activities. Especially where I am, it's cold, so getting around a bonfire or something like that outside, as long as everyone's safe and socially distanced with masked, is a lot of fun actually. And so trying to find some of the creative aspects of connection, human connection, that's meaningful to us. Again, going back to that salutogenic model of health, that's what we need. We need what's meaningful to us, especially in times like this when we're limited in what we're able to do. And so obviously the who of this is the family, friends, colleagues, and neighbors. And so if you're into journaling, or if you just want to think about this as a concept, I kind of gave you some examples of what this might look like. I kind of just talked through it before, but so calm.com, headspace.com, mindful.com is a new one that I hadn't seen before. I was researching for this and I found it, and I think it's phenomenal. They have a lot of guided meditation exercises. You can just press play and it's right there. They have all these different resources on that website. So if you are into that, or you are looking for more resources, try that one, and it's free. Examples of routines. So like I said, making lunch the night before and setting out my clothes, even if you're working from home. It's something, like I said, as a new mom, that people said to me, you need to shower every day, even if you're not going anywhere, and it makes you feel like a human. So, and that's not just for new moms, that's for everybody. So I think it's really helpful to just do some of these basic, simple things. The other thing that a lot of folks have told me before that's really helpful for them is so simple, but making the bed, even if that's the only thing you get done that day, making the bed is something that you accomplished. And so starting the day that way really helps you get off on the right foot. Especially if the day tends to kind of throw a couple of curveballs at you. And then scheduling regular get-togethers. I think that this is really tricky because we're all zoomed out, but for the people that really matter most, especially for folks who are elder care facilities and things like that, I have been working with a couple of facilities where I know they've been creative about getting tablets and things to people so that people can see their loved ones, and it makes such a huge difference. So even if it's a short period of time, it doesn't have to be this long, hour-long thing, but if it's just a check-in, it really helps us stay connected and grounded to the people around us in our inner circle. And so I do recommend that if you can schedule it, one time a week or maybe bi-weekly, something like that, to connect with people, to make sure that you're having that social piece of your life fulfilled during this challenging time. And so that's what I have today for you. Usually, typically, when I do any types of presentations, I have a couple of questions, and I'm happy to take questions. If you're interested in what I do, because most oftentimes as a counselor, people aren't surprised by what I do, but then as a music therapist, people are a little surprised. So sometimes I have some questions about that. So if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to take them in the chat, or however, you can email me afterwards too. And you can also visit our website here. The clinic's website is wessettherapy.com. And I guess I want to let everybody know that however you engage in self-care is enough, as long as you're doing these little incremental trying changes, these tiny bits of, I like tiny bits of try. There's just a little bit of effort goes a long way, and reminding yourself to give yourself that pat on the back when you're feeling kind of down or lonely. Oh, you know what? I reached out to my mom today. I feel really good about that, even though it was 5 minutes and we might not have got along the whole time. I did it. So it's a pat on the back for that. And sometimes people really need to start small, especially now. I've told a lot of my clients, did you drink water today? Maybe that's the thing that you pat yourself on the back for, because being gentle with ourselves is not something that comes naturally, especially in our culture. And I think that it's something to really focus on, is just being gentle with ourselves and being kind to ourselves, and taking the time, even though it doesn't always feel comfortable, to try some of these relaxation exercises on I'll go back, some of those websites, is really huge. So for me, for example, I know about myself that Headspace for me I didn't really connect to it a lot, but I really like mindful.org. Calm.com, some people love falling asleep. I have a client that loves falling asleep to calm.com. I want to stay up and listen to the story. So once you know the things that help you, you can kind of tailor it. Like I said, you individually tailor your resource list to items that you need, and keep it somewhere where you see it every day, so that you remember that list is there, and that those resources are there for you when you need them. And so I hope this helps. I hope that this helps you, kind of find space in your lives to connect. I feel like with the remote work that we've been doing, it's actually, we're all working twice as hard. We're working much harder and longer. There's no off button because we're always on and we're able to be on the computer at all times. So with that being said, having boundaries around your time is one huge thing about self-care too. So and boundaries around your time are going to help you to combat that loneliness and that social isolation, because you're going to have a little bit of time set aside to pay attention to what your needs are, what your self-care needs are. Okay, so are there any questions at all that I might be able to answer? Let me stop sharing if that helps. Here I am. Yes, I can define salutogenic. So salutogenic, let me go back. Um, well, I'll explain it. So pathogenic is basically kind of like the traditional medical model where you have a symptom, and so the symptom is treated. And I don't know if anybody's ever experienced this, but you might have a symptom and you feel that it's related to something else, but when you see a specialist, they typically look at the symptom and they're looking at this one thing. And so when we look at a salutogenic model of health, it's focused on health and wellness, and it's the relationship between health, wellness, stress, and coping. Those no problem. Those like 3 or 4 things, the relationship between those things. So for example, somebody might be really healthy throughout their lives, but they have a high level of stress. Their job is like just really, really intense. And so, when they get into their 40s, they notice they've got high blood pressure. And the doctor says, your weight is good, all of your other levels are good, but it's the stress that's got your blood pressure kind of up all the time, and we've got to work on stress. Now, stress is something we see as an environmental factor, right? It impacts our blood pressure, and then the blood pressure therefore impacts our heart and our physical health. And so if you just look at stress, you might get to the root of the problem, but maybe the person's stressed out for other reasons. So that's what, when we look at a salutogenic model of health, we're looking at their coping skills and the impact it has on their health and wellness. We're looking at the biopsychosocial model of health. We're looking at not just genetic components that this person was born with, but also their mental health and also their social health. So you might have right. So we all have challenges right now with our social isolation. That's going to impact everything else. It's kind of like a yes, exactly. So not just physical health, but includes mental health and the social determinants and health. Exactly. Yes. So and the coping skills and the coping methods and resilience are a key component of that model, if that helps too. And so the salutogenic, if you look up salutogenic on the internet and they give you all these beautiful picture resources, there's usually an umbrella is how they explain it. And it explains how it kind of trickles down. It's a heavy visual, so I didn't use it for our presentation today because it's a lot to take in, a lot of information. But it's really just looking at the whole person. Yeah, is a simple way of saying it. I hope that answered. I hope that helps. Yes. Are there any other questions? And I hope the resources help. And thank you. Oh, I'm so glad. And if you need anything at all or you want any more resources, I have plethoras of lists. I tried to keep it simple because we don't have a lot of time today. Yes, I can. Let's go back. Go back. Here we go. And, oh, so it's this one. Yeah, so calm.com, headspace.com, and mindful.org. There's really quite a few. I think there's one called Institutes of Health where it has all these beautiful scripts for particular different things. So if you're having a particularly angry day, it has one for anger. It has some meditation as opposed to mindfulness exercises as opposed to relaxation exercises because they're all a little bit different. There's also something to, if you get into this, there's something to know a little bit about the differences. So there's there's autogenic relaxation exercises where they use a word that, like, so say I asked you what's a word that helps you feel comfortable, and you might say warm and soft. And so throughout the exercise, I would say, and your body feels warm and soft, and it cues your brain to relax your body as I say those words. So it's really looking at our senses and our sensory system and how it responds to relaxation. And then the other ones are PMRs, so progressive muscle relaxation. So you start from your feet up, or maybe you start from the head down. Some folks have done it like cracking an egg over your head and feeling it drip down. I don't know why anybody invented that one, because it grosses me out. But head to toe, progressive muscle relaxation says, okay, you're releasing all the muscles in your face, and then you move sequentially through the body, and you can do that with yourself, just noticing where you're holding tension in your body and progressively going through the muscle groups and just trying to relax them with supported breath. So that's another one. So if you look up any of these things, it'll kind of lead you down this rabbit hole of exercises, and you really don't have to get overwhelmed with it. You can just try one and keep that in your pocket, and remember, I know for Christmas I got one of these watches that tells me, hey, you got to breathe. So that's helpful too if you are into getting reminded that you need to breathe, which I do. The institution website, let me see if I think it's the Institute for Health. Let me see if I can find it. No, you know what I'll do? If I find it, I can send it along. But I think I looked up relaxation scripts a long, long time ago in my own work, and it had popped up. Oops, sorry. It had popped up as it had that list of relaxation exercises and things like that. I'm trying to remember what it was. Institutes. I don't want to waste everybody's time, but let me see. It's not the National Institute for Health. I'll find it, and I can maybe send it to under it. Maybe you can pass it along to the folks who attended, because I'm not really sure what it's called now, but it does have some great scripts. Maybe if I search relaxation, because it just pops up. This one. Here we go. Inner Health. It was an I word. Inner Health Studio. Okay, so this is the website that I really enjoy this website. So there's relaxation scripts here. See, so there's guided imagery, anxiety relief, meditation scripts. You just read through them. There's quick ones. So if you only have 5 minutes. Physical ones are the autogenic I was telling you about. So progressive muscle relaxation or autogenic looks at your physical responses to certain words and things like that. So this is a really lovely website. It's not mine. I don't know whose it is. It has a lot of ads. That's the only downside. But it has coping skills for stress management. If you're a worksheet type of person, panic attack worksheets, stuff like that. But then it has these scripts that I found really helpful and lovely. And remember, if you like a script, but there's like a little paragraph in there you don't like, just change it or omit it, right? Make it your own. I really highly recommend making it your own, so that you can have access to that. All right. So should I put this in here? What is it? InnerHealthStudio.com. Answer. InnerHealthStudio.com. Well, I'm not sure about this feature with the questions, but this is cool, and I think I answered it. So, okay, great. Anybody else? Anything else? So, oh, that you wanted to see the pathogenic versus salutogenic. Let me go back. I can do that too. Sorry, I have my script here that's like getting in the way. Here we go. And then the comparisons. This one. Sorry, when I go back to the slides, this minimizes so I don't see the chat until I open it again. Sorry about that. All right. Oops, I switched it by accident. Goodness gracious. There we go. Okay. All right. So yeah, and this again, I put the retrieval the credit towards the optimalife.com website. This was just a really simple version of it. Like I said, the umbrella, if you look up salutogenic on the internet, the model is a little bit more in depth, and they have really crazy flow charts. But this is just a really simple version for the amount of time we had today. And if anybody else has anything else, let's see, because we're at time. So I'm going to stop share. You can see this. You can search this and you can see it at sorry, I keep going over it so you can't see. Optimalife.com, optima/life.com down there at the bottom here. If you'd like to look a little bit more into that. Great, perfect, awesome. Okay. So if there's no more questions, that's all we have for today, but I hope that this helps, and I hope that those scripts help, or any of the website resources, and if you need anything at all, again, don't hesitate to reach out and email me. I'll type my email in the chat. And thank you for coming. And I hope that you got something out of it, because I think, like I said, we can all learn something from loneliness. So, or any of our emotions for that matter, but I'm a little biased as a therapist. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for your time, and see you on the flip side. Oh, we have a raised hand. Sorry, I can't.